January 23, 1959. A group of students boarded a train in Sverdlovsk, Soviet Union. 9 of them. Young, loud, happy. They were students of the Ural Polytechnic Institute. Engineers, athletes, dreamers. Most of them were in their early 20s. Zina Kolmogorova sat by the window. She was 22. She was the heart of the group. Everyone loved Zina. She opened her diary and started writing. We sang songs all the way. Yuri played the mandolin. Lyuda kept telling jokes. This is going to be the best trip of our lives. She closed her diary and looked out the window. Snow was falling over the Ural Mountains. They were heading to Otorten, a remote mountain in the northern Urals. A Category 3 expedition, the hardest level. No roads, no villages, no help for hundreds of kilometers. Just snow, wind, and mountains. But they weren't afraid. They were experienced. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, 23 years old, serious, quiet, precise. He had led expeditions before. He planned every detail. The group also included Lyudmila Dubinina, 21, the toughest woman most of them had ever met. Nothing scared her. Semyon Zolotaryov, the oldest at 38, a war veteran, a mystery to the others. He joined last minute. Nobody knew him well. Yuri Doroshenko, 21, tall and strong. Yuri Krivonishenko, 23, the clown of the group. He worked at a nuclear facility before the trip. Rustem Slobodin, quiet, reliable, strong. Alexander Kolovatov, smart and observant. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, everyone called him Kolya, always smiling, no matter what. And Yuri Yudin, the 10th member. The group traveled by train, then bus, then truck, then on skis. Each day, they moved further from civilization, further from warmth, further from help. They took photos along the way, smiling faces covered in frost. They looked invincible. On January 28th, something changed. Yuri Yudin woke up with severe knee pain. He couldn't continue. He had to turn back. Before leaving, he hugged each of them. When he got to Zina, she held him a little longer. She smiled and said, "Don't worry, we'll be back in 2 weeks." He watched them disappear into the white horizon. 9 silhouettes getting smaller and smaller until they were gone. He never saw any of them again. He was the only one who survived. For the rest of his life, he would ask himself, what if I had stayed? The remaining 9 pushed forward. January 29th, normal. January 30th, normal. They set up camps, took photos, wrote in diaries. Everything was going according to plan. On January 31st, they reached a mountain called Kolat-Syakhl. In the language of the local Mansi people, this name means dead mountain. The Mansi had avoided this place for generations. They never explained why. They just said, "Don't go there." The group should have camped in the forest below, sheltered, protected from wind. But Dyatlov made a decision. They would camp on the open slope. No one knows why. It was the last decision he ever made. They set up their tent on the slope on February 1st. They anchored the tent, laid out sleeping bags, took off their boots and lined them up by the entrance. Cooked dinner, ate together, wrote in their diaries one last time. There is one last photo from inside the tent. The light is warm. Someone in the background is smiling. That photo was the last sign of life from any of them. What happened next is the biggest unsolved mystery in the history of Soviet exploration. Sometime between 9 and 11 at night, something happened at that tent. Something so sudden, so terrifying, that all 9 of them cut open the tent from the inside and ran out into the night. -30 degrees, complete darkness, heavy wind, no shoes, no coats, no gloves. Some were in their underwear. One was completely barefoot. They didn't use the entrance. They slashed the canvas with a knife from the inside and crawled out through the holes. Whatever it was, they chose certain death in the cold over staying inside that tent for one more second. Think about that. You are warm. You are sheltered. Your boots are right there, and you choose to run into -30 in your underwear. What could make 9 people do that? The group was supposed to send a telegram by February 12th. No telegram came. By February 20th, search parties headed into the mountains. On February 26th, they found the tent, half collapsed, covered in snow, the cuts in the fabric clearly visible. Inside, everything was in place. Boots in a row, warm jackets, food, cameras, diaries, a flask of alcohol, untouched. Everything needed to survive, left behind. They followed footprints leading downhill, 8 or 9 sets, some barefoot, some in socks, walking at first, then running. The trail led to a large cedar tree 1.5 kilometers from the tent. Under the cedar, the first 2 bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko, wearing almost nothing, hands burned and torn. Remains of a small fire that had gone out, branches broken up to 5 meters high, bark scratched and bloody. Someone had climbed this tree in the dark with bare hands. Were they trying to see the tent? Were they trying to see what was coming? 300 meters uphill, Igor Dyatlov, lying on his back, one arm frozen in the air, reaching toward the tent. He was trying to go back. He never made it. Further up, Zina Kolmogorova, face down, hands frozen mid-crawl, fingers dug into the ice. She had been crawling alone in the dark, back toward the tent, back toward life. She stopped 300 meters short. The same girl who wrote about laughter, who said, "We'll be back in 2 weeks." She died alone, crawling through darkness. Near her, Rustam Slobodin, a fracture in his skull, a deep crack. But it wasn't enough to kill him. He froze to death with a cracked skull. These 5 were found in February and March. The other 4 were not found until May. When the snow melted, search teams found them in a ravine 4 meters deep. Some wore clothing taken from the dead. They had survived longer, long enough to take clothes from their dead friends. This is where the story goes from tragic to terrifying. Lyudmila Dubinina had massive chest injuries, multiple broken ribs on both sides, force comparable to a car crash, but no bruises on her skin, no external wounds. Her eyes were missing. Her tongue was gone. Semyon Zolotaryov had almost identical injuries, broken ribs, crushed chest, no external damage. His eyes were also missing. Kolya, the one who always smiled, had massive skull fractures, crushed from the inside out. The forensic doctor wrote, "No human being could have inflicted this damage. The force required exceeds anything a person can produce." But there were no animal tracks, no signs of a struggle, no weapons, no evidence of other people. How do you crush someone's ribs without touching their skin? The Soviet investigation lasted 3 months. Then it was shut down. The case was classified. The official conclusion: the group perished as a result of a compelling natural force which they were unable to overcome. No explanation, no answers. Case closed. Files sealed. The theories have never stopped. Avalanche, the most common explanation. But no evidence of one was found. The tent was still standing. The footprints were intact. Soviet military testing. The Urals were used for secret weapons tests. Witnesses reported strange orange lights in the sky that night. Some clothing tested positive for radioactive contamination. Attack by the Mansi people. But they cooperated with investigators. And there were no foreign footprints. Infrasound, wind creating low-frequency sound waves that cause irrational panic and the need to flee. This could explain why they ran without thinking. But infrasound does not break ribs or crush skulls. In 2019, the Russian government reopened the case. Their conclusion: avalanche. Many researchers disagreed. The case was closed anyway. Yuri Yudin spent the rest of his life trying to find the truth. In 2013, at 75, he died. He never found out what happened. His last words on the subject: "If I had the answer, I could finally sleep." 65 years have passed. The tent is gone. The cedar is gone. But the mountain is still there. Kholat Shakal, Dead Mountain. The wind still blows across that slope the same way it did in 1959. And somewhere on that slope, covered by decades of snow and silence, there is a point, 300 meters from where a tent once stood, where a 22-year-old girl stopped crawling. Her fingers still reaching forward, her diary still in the tent behind her. The last thing she wrote: about singing, about laughter, about friends. She never finished that story. No one knows what made them run that night. No one ever will.